did you come to the point of saying, you know what, I'm going to specialize in the unsexiest part of the transaction, which is transaction coordination?
Yeah, well, it was never the plan. I will tell you, when I did read Rich Dad Poor Dad, 20 something years ago, never did I think I would be here. In fact, when I was at a big mastermind with Investor Lift, all the cartel bosses, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago down in Cancun. And my very best friend at the time, Corey Geary, I was telling him, he's like, dude, that's the stupidest idea that I've ever heard of. He's like, why? He's like, that's brain damage. Why would you want to do that? It's the worst part of the business. I'm like, well, man, because nobody teaches anybody, because you call me 3 times a week to help solve your problems. So I just realized that there was just a gap in either in education and in services where nobody was helping people. And, Kendall, do you know how many deals per year don't close? Like what the percentage is? You have any idea? I talk about it a lot, so I thought maybe you knew.
I imagine it's pretty high. If I were a betting man, I would say.
This is the average. The average is 50%.
Gosh,
and that's,
it's a coin toss.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? We also own a title company, so we have access to a lot of data. And I was in Orlando at the big ALTA convention, the American Land and Title Association, back in October, and the state of Florida is 60%. That includes retail deals. That's not just investors. So 50% of the time, your deal on average is not going to close. And if you're working virtual, it's probably honestly higher, because there's just so many problems out there, right? And so think of that, right? You did your research, you got the coach, you got the training, you picked a market, you did your marketing, you did the acquisitions, you found a buyer, all of those things. And then you couldn't clear title, and now you have a problem. And all of that was for nothing. You rang the bell, you're like, oh, we're gonna be rich, order the jet. And right, and it can't close, and you can't actually realize, that profit. So it's very, very important. Kind of the way that I fell into it was I was, way back in the day, I was a coach for dispositions. Nobody teaches disposition. So that was sort of my thing. Even in my business where I had a partner, I handled that back half of the business. So that just became the thing that I was really well known for. I flew around the country and trained really big wholesale teams, and also helped them with transactions. Then COVID happened, and in fact, this room I'm sitting in was our transaction coordination office originally. And, people let some of their staff go. Remember, the market, boom, picked up really quick. And some of my friends were like, hey, can you help us close some of these deals while we try to get some new coordinators, or, bring our other people back. So we kind of fell into it a little bit backwards. It wasn't our intention. We're like, oh, well, we can do this, and we'll just help some of our buddies close their deals. Maybe we'll close 5 or 6 deals a week for people. And now it's turned into, a ridiculous business that's just growing so quickly.
That's incredible. I love that you found a need, and totally. I mean, the thing that just strikes me so much is the fact that, like, I'm thinking back when I was very first doing my wholesale house deals, my very first deals, I had plenty of coaching on finding the deal, on dispoing the deal, but what happens when things go wrong? And I think people look to the title company like, please help me. And a regular title company, they're like, well, that's really not our bag. We'll sell you insurance and we can kind of guide you. But so can you talk a little bit about, go ahead.
Well, no, I think we're going in the same spot here. Yeah, there's just that huge disconnect. A lot of the old school coaches are like, oh, just find a good investor-friendly title company and you'll be good. Well, that's not a title company's job. Like, I know a lot of people that are listening to this think title companies make a lot of money. They do not make a lot of money. I have friends that run a really big one here in Eastern Tennessee, and they net between $400 to $600 per transaction, per file. That's not a lot, right? So they don't have just staff upon staff to be calling around, getting leases from the tenant and, checking all of this stuff. That's not their job. Their job is to go back and make sure they can convey this with clear title, transfer it with clear title. So, they're going back through the books in, at the property appraiser's office going, okay, who owned this and who owned it before that, who owned it before that. Their job is not collecting documents and lining people up to make sure that everybody's there, or, oh, one of the heirs is in prison. How do we get a hold of him? Like, that's not their job. That always kicks back to the investor. And, Kendall, the thing that we hear the most, right, from our clients is, after they've been with us for 30 or 60 days, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea how much time this was taking up, because it's literally like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It just nicks you slowly, little by little, an hour here, 30 minutes there, 15 minutes here. Let me stop what I'm doing. Let me go back and make a call, right? And you just think you have to do it. And that's the other thing that we hear is, oh my God, I didn't know there was another way. I didn't know somebody else could do this, because none of us, right? I think we could say with certainty, most of the people that are investors and wholesalers, we like to talk, and we're very action takers, and we like to be out there in the mix, right? Doing the thing, not going through, making notes and, calling around trying to find paperwork. Like, it's just not our personality. It's not what we love to do. Most of you guys, if you're like me, my bookkeeper hates me, my accountant hates me, my lawyer hates me. Like, I never do any of that stuff on time because I want to be out making deals,
Yeah.
So title companies, it's not their job to coordinate your transaction. It's just not. And, so that means you're going to do it. But if you're doing it, what are you not doing? You're not on the phone. You're not talking to your buyer. You're not talking to your seller. And maybe, because you're knee deep in trying to figure out, decipher abstractor talk, right, of what a monumental title is, you're not calling your buyer and you're not calling your next seller. And the lost opportunities are just incredible.